Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rhythm and Roads podcast. My name is Josiah Solis. I'm here with Joshua, who is the founder of the podcast, and we have a very special guest today, music composer based in LA, Tony Anderson. Hey, man, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Tony.
What's up, boys?
All right.
So, man, it is a privilege to have you on. I've been listening to your music since 2018. Now, I know you've been around much longer than that, but I started film school in Los Angeles. I attended Biola University, which is a private university, Christian university that has one of the most nationally ranked film schools for a private university. And fun fact, our film school was named the Snyder School of Cinema based off the Snyder family of In-N-Out. In-N-Out Burger
Wow.
gave us a big grant. Well, Lindsay did, the granddaughter of the founders, gave Biola's School of Cinema a big grant. So now it is officially called the Snyder School of Cinema.
More importantly, do you have an In-N-Out in the school?
No, isn't that ironic?
I don't trust these people. I don't trust. Money's one thing, but cheeseburgers are completely different.
Yes.
And I would argue more necessary than money. I mean, if you think about it, if there's a disaster, an EMP, a nuke, whatever, yeah, great money. But smash burgers, specifically the smash, and this is a little controversial, but In-N-Out, they're great, but the patties don't have the Maillard effect, the crunch on the outside.
Oh, the crust.
And to me, I've become more influenced by that since living in LA. I mean, it's smash burger town. I don't know if El Paso's smash burger town, but look, we could make this whole conversation about smash burgers if you want. I'd probably feel more comfortable if we did that.
Actually, Tony, what we're known for in, I think, Texas is Whataburger.
I love Whataburger.
Oh, my God.
I love it.
Yes.
Really quick, Tony, can you just tell us about your upbringing and what kind of sparked your interest in music, and does it run in your family?
I think so. I wish my family kept records of who was alive, what was their name, what did they do. But recently when I looked, all my dad had was like, hey, sorry, your great-grandfather was a Nazi and he got killed in the war. And I was like, that's it? That's all we have, right? So thankfully he wasn't SS. Okay, not in his defense. He was fighting for the German military. But that we don't have much data on my family. All I know is we grew up pretty lower middle class. I was born in South Florida near Miami, but my real upbringing was in the Midwest in Nebraska on a farm. So we had 6 acres, and my siblings and I had so much freedom. Part of that was, I think, when you grow a lot of your own food. And, my dad was working up to 3 part-time jobs just to provide for us. Really, it's like our mom, and then we're all like driving her crazy. So she's like, you need to go out and work the land, basically. So we just had hundreds of chickens. We had a massive garden, and we had no technology in the 90s. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have, we eventually got like radios, and, I would get introduced to music. The first music I fell in love with was contemporary Christian music in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Which is such a vibe. Like Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yeah.
DC Talk. I remember going to
DC Talk.
Spirit Fest 95 in Omaha, Nebraska, and just going, Grits was there doing a backflip. I later found out Grits were a food for breakfast, but to me, they were a rap band. And
I like Grits.
My older brother and I shared a bedroom. He would always listen to like really, really like deep cut contemporary Christian music, which I did just say that out loud. Deep cut contemporary Christian music.
So then let's put that to the test, Tony. Have you heard of Church of Rhythm?
No.
Okay.
So I am not deep enough. No. Long story short, though, my older brother Chris had a knack for stuff that was borderline electronic at times. Now, we eventually left Nebraska, which is really sad. We had to come back to Florida. We had technology. We had a TV. We had an Xbox. My dad had a better paying job. And I eventually got my first truck and 1988 Chevy S10, which I just bought a 93 S10. That's my new
truck. Nice.
93 S10. And I could choose whatever I wanted to listen to, right? Which nowadays means nothing.
Oh yeah.
Back then, if you could choose your own music, it was a big deal. And I found this band called the Crystal Method, which was instrumental, electronic, breakbeat style stuff. And they were the first group that got me into, like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. And around that same time, this must have been 2001 or two, computer programs had started coming out that would let you put music together on the computer. My older brother was playing with it with his friends. They had like a cracked copy that they got off Kazaa or Kazam. What was it called? Kazaa? I forget. You could download things illegally. And it was Fruity Loops.
Are you talking about LimeWire or
similar? Yeah, something like that. And they had a program called Fruity Loops. It was on version 2. Now I think they're on version like 1 or something like that. And they were mapping out how you could create music on a computer. And my parents would always limit the time we spent on video games, but they never limited the amount of time we spent creating. And so when my older brother Chris got on this program and he would be done, I'd get on, and I'm thinking, how do I make the stuff that I heard that the Crystal Method makes? And effectively, it started this process of learning to make music in little segments, like 4-bar or 8-bar segments that you could then piece together, and then all of a sudden you have a song. And my whole journey started with electronic. And I would say to this day, most of what I listen to is actually like, it's electronic stuff. I don't listen to music really at all. It's just not something I enjoy. I don't go to concerts. I don't, like, friends send me Spotify playlists and I never listen to them. I just don't listen to music. But when I do, it's always electronic stuff. I just find a lot of joy and rest in it. I don't want to listen to ambient stuff. I don't want to listen to piano. I'd rather play and write during the day. And I've heard film editors are similar. If you're in film,
yes,
and making films, you can't go watch a Chris Nolan film and relax, or Denis Villeneuve. You're not going to watch Sicario and be like, well, this is relaxing. You're going to be comparing, you're going to be analyzing, you're going to be breaking it down, and it's not restful.
Well, there is that point, and then the other point is that, just like how you said, with you being so talented, just when people send you music you don't really care to listen to, that's kind of how it is for, like, those of us who are aspiring filmmakers. Like, there are tons of TV shows and movies that I have not seen.
There you go.
And every once in a while, there's those ones like that I'm like, I have to see that. I have to see this. But then, like, people are saying, oh, you need to watch this show. You need to watch this show. And I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. And I never do. It's just,
I never do. If it weren't for a few friends that drugged me to, or tricked me into going to concerts every once in a while. Like, I was just in Berlin this past fall, and my friend Luke bought me tickets as a surprise to go see this artist named Nils Fromm do this live show in Berlin. Yeah, I don't want to go see Nils. Why? Because he's the gold standard for me of electronic and classical crossover. He always has been. I love Nils. But, like, this is not going to be fun. I'm going to walk away and go, I don't like how my own music sounds. But I'm so glad I went, because I got broken out of my shell and I had a full body experience with his music. And he's such an inspiring guy. I'm glad. But it's still, it shows you, like, hey, if there's electronic elements, if it's loud, I tend to gravitate toward it. I tend to like it. Even the speakers I have are made for hip hop producers. So I like stuff that has dynamic in it. And oddly enough, my stuff is like super quiet and like minimal, but I like listening to the big stuff, like Skrillex, Porter Robinson.
sure.
I don't care how much I get made fun of. Majid Jordan, the guy that Drake signed years ago. I love dynamics. Like, to me, pop music is such a delight for the ears, because for as long as we've had recorded music, we've never been able to get this much loudness in the same amount of headroom as we've had access to our entire lives, or our entire experiences as humans. And so when pop producers or hip hop producers are able to jam in tons of dynamic variants and things that hit hard, and then they pull back, and then they use reverbs, it's the ultimate art form. I think it's the hardest thing to do. I'm glad I don't do lyrical or pop music. I'll say that.
There are some songs that you have written that do have, like, vocal melodies over it. Is that as far as you can go, or as you want to go? You never want to have, like, some lyrics in there that just kind of ghostly fade away. Like, there's some people that are in your genre that do that. They just kind of have something.
Yeah. It's funny that you asked that, because I haven't talked about this, but my next album, Naya Barrera is the name. It comes out in October. I sing on 4 of the songs, and it's very direct singing. It's like you can tell what it is. And it's
Yeah.
the first time in my work I got to the point where I couldn't get across what I wanted to get across with instruments.
Sure.
And it's a risk because people who enjoy instrumental music enjoy it because they can assign their own nostalgia, their own meaning and intent behind the music. The minute there's a lyric, it's guiding you, it's directing you. It's actually one of the problems I had in going to evangelical churches in the US. Even though I'm still a Christian, I don't go to church. And part of it is there's no mystery. It's very left brain. It hits you. It tells you exactly what to think. And I mean, I went to a Bible college in Joplin, Missouri for 4 years. That's where I got my undergrad. So we were trained to rationally explain things, link things together, tell the story, get back into the text, exegete it with this exact hermeneutic, do this, blah, blah, blah. And there's no mystery there. It's sort of like a performance, a pre-canned performance, and it's very cerebral. And it's funny now in my music and in my work I get to do now, there's no talking, and it allows me and the people who listen to it, I hope for the listener at least, to enter into a world that is much more expansive and less specific. I have a ton of people that are worried about me all the time that email me, "Are you still a Christian?" And I just never reply back because it's like they need clarity. And I'm like, guys, relax. But going lyrical, to get back to that, is a risk, because effectively what you're doing is taking the margin of what you felt in the song, and you're taking it very small. But I want to do it because these songs are not complete to me. Phrasing that melody on a synthesizer or a bunch of layered instruments, it has to be lyrical. And thankfully, you know, when I played it for my wife, who's my ultimate metric for if a song should live or not. Sure. Really, when I play it for Brooke, if she responds to it well, I think, okay, it's ready. If she doesn't, I know there's an issue I need to push in. Thankfully, when I played these for her, she said, "I really like that. That sounds like if Tony Anderson were to sing on a song, that's exactly what it would sound like." So I hope it'll come across natural. And I think the first one of those will be out in February.
Are you?
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Are you a singer, or are you just trying your hand at singing?
I'm not a singer and I'm not a songwriter, but thank God for technology.
Are you just kind of adding filters over it and stuff like that?
Yeah, a lot of new programs allow you to, I mean, I can get close in pitch, but a lot of new programs will automatically in real time pitch correct, and then I add effects on top of it. And so you're doubling and tripling your voice and not hearing just the sound of your voice loud in the mix. You're hearing it buried, almost like a Bon Iver effect. I actually have taken a lot of inspiration from how he layers vocals.
Yeah, Bon Iver is great. So
that's kind of what it'll be. And I'm trying to figure out how to ride the line between being really clear in what I'm saying and not being clear.
Sure.
You know, because if you're, you know, we can get into that later, but that, you know, if you're overly clear and people can understand every word, that's one thing. That's like a lot of music. Sure. But what I want to do is kind of blur it a little bit. So I think he said that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think he did. So we'll find out. But it's, you know, there are a lot, like I said, there's a lot that I want to say in this album that it's the first time I've hit that invisible barrier of not being able to use instruments. And I want to use the human voice. I may bring in a few collaborators as well, but it'll likely largely be me.
Yeah, there is something to that where I have heard this. In fact, I was on a podcast, the podcast yesterday with somebody named Cloud Cage, who does video, kind of similar ambient stuff, atmospheric, synth. But one of his songs called Atlas, there is like an African American voice. It's not like chanting, but he is singing something, and you don't really know what he's saying. You can kind of understand some of the syllables, but it's like very ghostly, and that stuff is charming. It really is. And the thing is that kind of what you were mentioning, how like the aspect of kind of like modern evangelicalism in the sense of kind of just the mystery of it. And I think that's what's charming about some of like the ancient hymns, like the hymnals that were sung, kind of like, and we'll go back to this since we have talking about Paris on the docket, but just kind of like talking like the Gregorian chants. There's like something mystifying about that and otherworldly about that really speaks to the faith of some of the Christians that have come before us.
Yeah, 100%.
The
Mhm.
the question that I want to jump to now, it really is like, were you classically trained? Were you self-taught? Like, how did that go?
No classical training. It's all self-taught. And
Wow.
I think it's a testament to how far you can go nowadays just by downloading some software and figuring it out.
Sure.
Because I started
That's cool.
figuring some of this out before YouTube was a thing. And I wish I had YouTube at the time because the tutorials would be lights out. But there were instruments that came out on software that meant I could just plug in a cheap plastic MIDI controller keyboard to my computer, and I could use that to play thousands of different sounds. And then I think I started learning to layer when I got rejected by Hans Zimmer's people in 2008 because my stuff was trash. They used a lot more illustrative words than trash when I wanted to intern there. That's when you had to send CDs in, like physical. Like, what has happened to humanity? CDs sounds like it's 100 years ago. There, you're not very good. You're not ready for this, and also you'd have to live in LA to even be a runner. And I'm thinking
Wow.
I can't afford to live out there and get paid no money. So, but one of his guys started mentoring me. uh he would critique my music and tell me how to get better, and layering was the key. I remember him saying, you can't just make one iteration of something. Make like a few, maybe three or four, and then change the volumes of each so that it's not just one thing doing that. Well, now I've taken it to a ridiculous degree where sometimes there are 20, 30, 40 versions of something tucked down in there. And I just view it as like I love what Vangelis said, the composer that people largely attach to Blade Runner's music. He said, everyone knows music. You may not know how to read it on a piece of paper, but we all know music universally. It's a universal invisible language.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I get to do what I do today because I know music, but I
Mhm.
don't know how to read or write my own songs. I don't know how to play or perform live. I've learned through muscle memory how to memorize things on pianos. And I know my technology, but that's not unique. Someone who's in a nuclear submarine has to memorize the technology, and they're
Right.
good at what they do if they can learn how to memorize it and know it and recall it in a moment of crisis. Same
Mhm.
engineers, filmmakers. We get our gear. We don't know why we love our gear. We don't know why we're looking for new gear all the time. We don't know why we're so fascinated by stats, but we are. And for me, it's a perfect marriage of mixing technology. Like, we're in the greatest age to be writing music
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
anytime, and we're
Mhm.
also in the most confusing era to figure out how to get our work out there
sure.
with algorithms and the changes
Yeah.
of social media sites. So I think
Mhm.
what it is it's an intuitive gift in music converging with the best tech on planet Earth, and it only keeps getting better. It only keeps getting more accessible. And so now I'm a time millionaire. Like, I really mean that. I'm a time millionaire. I have so much time to think through how to make the most simple instrumental idea sound exactly the way I want it to sound. And I don't have a label or no offense to film directors out there, but I don't have a director on my back saying I need this cue yesterday.
Mm.
I don't have an assistant. I don't have a manager. I don't have a team. It's just me. It's my little converted garage. It's
Wow.
pianos. It's some synthesizers. It's a laptop. I actually went back to a laptop 2 years ago because the M1s are super fast.
M1s are crazy. Yeah.
So that's it. And I would say this is normal. Most people are doing music these days. Like, my story is so average compared to the average mean of people in this industry now. And I would say it's the same with film. Like, did any of us get trained? Maybe we thought that was the path. Maybe we thought,
Mhm.
but I'd rather have a good mentor and a good
Mhm.
set of tools and a lot of time than anything else.
Did you see that? Did you see that
Wow,
bubble?
that's amazing. It did that. AI.
Yeah, it does that for real.
AI is
That's
taking over.
that's that
I
was such a surprise.
was
Really
like,
quick,
oh.
Tony,
I'm shocked by that.
I'm kind of wanting to know, like, so do you not know music theory?
No, none.
That's so crazy. Okay, but you
Wow.
must know at least some of it because you need to know what the heck you're doing.
No, no, and I don't. Like, when I wrote
Wow,
a
that's
score,
cool.
when I wrote the Heart of Man score, my friend Brandon Collins came in and he would review all the MIDI information, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, It means you can play something musical in your program and you can always go back and change it. It's not like a fixed audio file that can't be changed. It's MIDI still plays that stuff back, but you can modify it. Looks like Tetris. It's kind of fun.
That's
Brandon
cool.
would come in, and he's an incredible orchestrator. He was working with One Republic quite a bit at the time.
That's cool.
And I always loved their arrangements. And so he would come and review everything I did. I loved his work. I loved the reputability he had. And he would say, you know, a real orchestra can't do that, or that, but they can do this. So when we went to Slovakia to record those strings, I brought him with me. I said, you have to be here. You have to talk music to the music people. I'll tell you how I want it to feel, but then could you communicate? And so both of us have to be there. It's not the same score without Brandon, and he knows that. And but also Brandon, you know, wasn't hired to write the melodies and the chords for that. So I would say within a few years, you'll know if a kid has the gift for composing or if they're more of a session player or an orchestrator or whatever. And for me, I try to keep the melodies really simple. And I love that concept because it makes it accessible to people. You can remember it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of composers and producers like to do really complex things. And to me, it's like, dude, everyone's passing by the simple ideas. They're all hanging. It's all fruit hanging from a tree right when you walk into Walmart. There it is. And everyone's like, no, I want the crazy complex stuff. I'm like, don't give that stuff to people, man. You know, people need basic things that elevate their everyday experience, that help them facilitate the work they're trying to do. I'm very aware that the music I'm doing, I'm in the service industry. My job is to create a product that serves the use case of the person listening to it. Because at the end of the day, they don't care about me or my work. They care about getting their work done more deeply. And the music is just a little key to unlock something that already exists in them. So my goal is to keep it simple, have fun, be playful, and, you know, give my music out as a gift to people. And I think that's probably why I'm able to do it, because I don't go for the super complex stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Tony, I have a question. Sorry. Have you ever composed any music for like films?
I thought about it because in 2021, I get a cold email from J.J. Abrams. He said, I found your stuff on
no way.
Spotify. I want to work with you. And I want to talk to you about scoring films. And I replied, I don't think this is J.J. Abrams. This is a joke. And he said, no, it's real. So he called me and I found out he loved synthesizers. And so we became friends, and like actual friends. I'm not making that up. It's really psycho to think about that. But he wanted the same piano as me. He wanted the same gear. We started hanging out. We went to synth conferences together. He told me to come out to Tucson when he was filming a show. I was like, is this real? My wife was like, I think he might be gay. He might want to be with you. I'm like, no, I think he's definitely got a wife. Because he'd hit me up at midnight and be like, dude, what's the setting for this Pultec EQ? He's a great guy. He's
awesome,
a man. And he's such a treasure. He's a national treasure. And, you know, long story short, he asked me, do you want to do this? And I had to think about it. And I actually said no, which might be the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, or the smartest thing I've ever done. Because when you write music for a film at JJ's level, first of all, I may never see JJ in the whole process unless he's directing it, you know. But then you're writing a lot of music that's super hyperactive. I mean, most scores for large action movies are frenetic. It's like sticking your head into a hornet's nest and then taking it out and sticking it back in. I mean, the pace of modern movies is pretty insane to me. It's very loud. It's very orchestral. It's very bombastic. And that's the opposite of everything in my lane. Not only that, but even when I score independent films, it's a nonstop back and forth between me and the director, trying to figure out each other's language. And oftentimes I'm writing things that are 30% of what I hoped they'd be, because you're creating by committee. You're not creating what you believe should be there. You're creating what a whole group of people think should be there. And then worst of all, in large studio settings, you don't own the asset when it's finished. And if I have any word of advice for a young composer and producer, it's own your metadata. That's the master and the publishing. The master is the finished sandwich. The publishing are the ingredients you need. There it is again, the thumbs up. The publishing is the ingredients to make that sandwich. So if you like Taylor Swift had her master sold out from under her, but since she owned the publishing, she's just gone and made all new masters with her own songs and told her fans, listen to these new ones, not the old ones. So the only way I've been able to build wealth over the last 15 years and have a career is because without knowing it at the very beginning, I didn't sign a deal with a label or a licensing house or anything like that that said, yeah, I'll let you market my music, but in exchange, you'll own part of it. I own 100% of everything I've ever written, and I only ever share equity with the people who write it with me, individuals, never
awesome.
corporations. So if you score a film, and let's say the payday was 300 grand, it would consume at least a year of your life. You would have probably wanted to kill yourself multiple times along the way, or the people you're working with. You would have had to do the political dance with the diversity, equity, inclusion thing. Is a white guy really going to get a job in LA right now? Absolutely not. Unless I change every pronoun and way to identify my gender and all my politics, and then threw all my core values out the window and then peed on them.
That's a conversation for later.
Yeah, seriously. So if DEI was not a thing, and if it were a different era, maybe. But nowadays, dude, nothing. 300 grand is not worth going to hell and back for. I don't care who you are. And it also says something that a lot of my dear trusted friends in the industry are trying to get out of scoring. To do something more meaningful, meaning I want to do independent films where the director trusts me and I trust the director. And so maybe I'm able to do things that are a little more authentic to me. And maybe I'm doing it for $0, but I get to keep all of the master and publishing on the back end of that, thereby meaning I might have a chance in 5 years to net positive on the time invested in this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's fantastic. And
that's awesome.
I think that is a word of advice for anyone who wants to get into your industry and specifically what you do. There is a push and there is more of a leaning towards independent filmmaking, just working off of what you do. I 100% agree that there is this DEI really constraint that is really stifling a lot of people, and I think there's gonna be a blowback on it fairly soon. You're already starting to see some of it. But that's for...
Oh yeah, did you see the interview where the new Star Wars director is this Indian woman, and she's not familiar with Star Wars as a franchise, and when she was asked what the arc of the story is, she said, I like to make men uncomfortable. Right. That's the arc.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's not a good story. That's like a political message, but that's not a story. It doesn't have to do with Star Wars. So with all due respect, it's like, you would have thought Disney would have learned their lesson last year. They hemorrhaged cash. Their park attendance is down. Their streaming service is in a flat tailspin.
Yeah.
And they're still leaning into it. So to me, I think it will have a net negative, but people's intelligence has not waned. That's why when people tell me America's falling apart, I'm like, no, it's not. People are sharp in their thinking. People know what is right. I still have yet to meet a single person in LA who is this woke, leftist, insane person that I keep expecting to meet here. I don't meet them. People here have nuance. And especially if you're a business owner or you're making money, you are not voting Democratic. I'm sorry. But LA is full of closet conservatives, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Malibu, especially.
Malibu as well, huh?
Oh, dude, Malibu is a haven for reasons, because look, they left LA for a reason, to get out. And number two, if you like your money, you protect your money.
Yeah.
You don't just like flush it down the toilet for the state.
Right.
And, it sounds controversial, but I became a conservative after moving to LA.
You're not the only one, my man. You're not the only one.
Really?
There's people who do that. Some people that I speak to who are working filmmakers who have contract with Disney, they talk about that there is quite a big population of people who became conservative when moving here for the movie industry.
And then going through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
100%. I was like, wait, none of this makes sense. So like, white people are bad. We're the scum of the earth. I can't have an American flag out. I need to have like a LGBTQ Ukraine BLM flag out. No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not. Oh, there's a thumbs down. No, give that a thumbs down. And you can cut any of this if you want. You can cut any of this. Thumbs up. But I came here and I told my wife, I don't want to be political on social media. But in person and in conversations where there's nuance, I will absolutely open up about it because okay, it'd be one thing if I met people who actually think socialism was a good idea. Where are these people? Where is this silent minority? Where's the mouse with the microphone that is driving these huge decisions that literally affect the crap that we have to put up with on streaming services?
Right.
You know, I just wanted to watch Julia on HBO about Julia Child, the French chef, because my wife is a chef.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole second season is just about how bad men are. And I'm like, guys, this is so boring. Like, I've heard this storyline for forever. This is about Julia. It's about her French recipes. Make it about food. I don't watch this stuff to get lectured. Oppenheimer, same thing. Okay. Slow lead up. Oh, tension. Immediately, there's this regret. We shouldn't have done it. Okay. You don't want to give any context about what the loss of Japanese and American life would have been had we not done this. He's immediately just going to go into this like internal disintegration over the atomic bomb. It's like, Chris, dude. Oh my God. So everything is not restful anymore. So what am I going towards? Formula One, always restful. I love that show on Netflix. That thing's good.
Yeah.
I thought Severance was really good. I thought Severance was really intelligent, actually. Succession was okay. My wife wants to watch Band of Brothers, so we're watching that right now. It's like, get ready.
You are?
Good.
Oh, wow.
So good.
Anyway, so I don't want to take all your time with that, but that's a big deal. It factored into the JJ conversation, which is, hey, could we be buddies, but maybe not work together? And dude, it's been so much fun because that friendship has taught me how to navigate this town so much. JJ, how do you say no? How do you respond to emails? Well, look at this thumbs up. I need to stop doing this.
You should just do this. When you're making a list, just do that.
What was that, dude? It doesn't do it. It doesn't catch anything. I'll do it.
Yeah. All right.
And that's been so invaluable. And I feel like he's treated me like, hey, let me show you how I navigate life in this town. And it's saved me a lot of time and a lot of energy. Also, I think all of us in the creative world, what we're looking for is someone who's made it to see us.
Sure.
And to say, hey, I see you and I like what you're doing. I don't need an Oscar. I don't want an award. What I want is someone to see and hear my work and say, I respect what you did. And when it comes from someone we really respect, it changes our lives. It relaxed something in me. And since I got that call from him, and I remember asking him, like, what of mine have you heard? He said, dude, I've listened to everything. I listen to my scripts. I was like, you listen to my music while you write your.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's why people hated Star Wars. No, that's a joke.
Good job, man.
That's funny.
No, I told him I really liked the last one. I said, I know it's controversial, but I loved that last film that you did, dude. And I really encouraged him. Because I thought, who's out there encouraging these people?
Sure.
Like, not to be religious. Who's out there praying for and encouraging? Oh, I did it again. Who's out there praying for and encouraging these people out there? Like I really liked what he did with a lot of it. I thought a lot of it was super nostalgic, and he was super receptive and really humble, and actually told me how fraught with difficulty the production was on that one. That there was a lot of heartbreak attached to the last one, and those are the things you just don't hear. You just read the review,
right?
Everybody piles on and hates it, or they love it. But still, though, there's a defining mark between movies of that era and the DEI era.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
I literally am just thinking,
man.
What are kids, like when Brooke and I have kids, how are you going to try to explain? And I think that it'll be pre-DEI and post-DEI.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that, it's unfortunate because we, like, again, when you say that when you have kids, like that's what's waiting for them. It's frustrating to us, and we remember what it was like pre-DEI.
Yep.
But the thing is that you don't want this kind of like frog in the boiling water effect where it's like, no, you're actually in a bad situation, and I'm the only one who can tell you that because I'm seeing it from the outside.
Yes.
When they're born into it, they think that that's how it is, but no, that's not how it is. And that's what people can let them know, like, no, this is something that's contrary to what's true. That's a meritocracy. People who, like, you work hard at what you want to build. You don't tear down other people's work.
100%. And the world needs men exactly as they are to be men, to be assertive, to be initiative. initiating rather, to take the initiative. The world needs men to create order and to take control of businesses, families, and being fathers. And so when men are told you're the problem, you're ruining the planet through climate change, through consumption, through your misogyny, through the patriarchy, not only does that stuff bounce right off of me, it actually doesn't offend me or make me uncomfortable. It's completely useless. The conversation's completely dead in the water and useless because men are so necessary in this culture. And when I was in Europe this past fall, which is full of beta males, it's just like, dude, it's beta male central. It's like a hot air balloon exploded and just poured beta males out all over Europe. There are these women waiting to be initiated with, beautiful, high aptitude women. And my wife and I would talk all the time. We're like, dude, if a guy wanted to get married, just come to Europe. Pick any country, just throw a dart at Europe. Go find a beautiful woman and provide for her. Tell her you own a business or you're starting one. She'll literally like move anywhere in the world and start a family and be the best wife and mother of your kids ever. There's a huge gap. It's opening up all over the world. And specifically in America, the reason I rage against the DEI machine is because it tells men take a back seat. That's the whole nature of that Julia second season on HBO. It's the only male they like in the script is the submissive male who constantly props up his wife above him as if it's a competition. And I'm like, guys, you just broke the third wall. Show me the woke New York women who are angry and educated and bitter and condescending who wrote this script, and let them come over for dinner and meet my wife and experience some good food and wine and some joy so they can chill the F out, right? And drop this vendetta. So that's, I think, where this is going. And honestly, it's like instrumental music has, I think I've only been allowed to keep doing what I'm doing because instrumental music is a meritocracy still. Right? And I hope films continue to be a meritocracy. But
Absolutely.
I'm only able to do what I do right now, probably because nobody knows the face or the color of my skin behind it. But if I was singing or if I was maybe more out there on a label or something like that, I think I'd be in really, really rough shape. I know my film composer friends are. They had their shot, but it's just been, it's been a rough ride for a lot of them.
Yeah, there is, there's like that saying, what is it, like when you're young and you're passionate, you're liberal, but when you're older and real life hits, you're conservative.
There you go.
Real
and
life,
by the way, I know I'm going longer here, but I have more time, so you guys can just cut out the fat, and so I'll be here longer.
Yeah, so I just want to say, like, this is set for an hour. It may ask me if I want to increase, don't know yet. So if it hits the hour and it shuts us off, hopefully we can jump back on. Like,
yeah, that should be easy. I would love that. I just really appreciate you guys, and I didn't think going there, but hey, if you think it's helpful or usable, then use it.
Yeah. Okay. What I do want to do though is I would like to talk about your mother. So my brother and I lost ours to cancer back in 2021.
No way.
Yeah, so it was fairly recent, and a lot of your music, Tony, really I listened to a lot of the in that time, specifically when she was passing away. It was specifically Butterflies, because my mom loved Butterflies. Before she died, she began having dreams of God telling her that she would soon become a butterfly. So she already kind of felt and sensed in her that her time was coming soon. So Butterflies, that particular work in itself means a lot to me. So I just want to encourage you, since you're talking about
the piano sonata or the normal song.
The normal song.
Wow.
And really quick, I want to appreciate you enough to show you my most favorite part of it, if you don't mind.
Dude, wow. This is a crazy honor. Thank you. That one? That whole lead?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So why did that part connect with you, do you think?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's so beautiful and it's so emotional that it really does make me think about my own mother. And it's the prettiest
note that is.
I wonder what that.
It's the prettiest part of the song, and it's interesting that you never revisit it.
Wow, that's interesting. I was sorry, I had to figure that one out on the white keys.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that song felt so natural. And I put it together one day on my end, went down to Nashville, had my friend Justin Luce play guitar. And a lot of what you hear there is Justin just free playing. And he's so good because I was able to go home and go, wow, that melody, that's really meaningful. That's really meaningful. And then we came back and did the drums with Darren King from Mute Math. And I knew Mute Math from before. And that song took on an energy that was really special. But then my friend Chad Walbrink mixed it, and he took some liberties in producing while he did the mix. And to me, that's a good example of like, you have the right musicians who all they heard was the basic chord structure, and they felt the freedom to give their best, including the mix engineer. And it's funny because then I've never ever heard feedback on the actual song. What happened is a year or two ago, the piano sonata version of it kind of took off on social media, but it means the world. And especially the connection with your mom means the world. I'll find those little stems if I can and send them over to you so you can hear exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it's that like that what kind of like what you were describing them, that original kind of goes up, like that entire section is, you never revisit it. And I kind of wondered that because it's really a pretty part of the song. I think it's the most beautiful. But you never revisit that. And then it then does its own thing later, but it's really that beginning part, that whole entire sequence from minute 6 on, that I wanted your thoughts on, and just kind of like how you got together and built that melody. And you said that you just got some other people on it as well, huh?
Well, and that in particular, I would have written that exact melody up front that you referenced before going to work with the musicians. But a lot of what I'll do in my music is sometimes a lead is just for the moment. It's to have a breath. It's to say, I have something I want to share with you in this moment. It's not super important to me that we come back and complete that thought all the time, but I want it to be there. I want it to be present. I want it to be a little microcosm and a little gift of what's to come. And, I knew I needed to get to the I needed to get there. And I didn't want to just have vacant space and repetition. I wanted to have a little riff over the top. But oftentimes that's how my writing is evolved in that way, in that I'll go back and listen to 5 or 6 different songs that were competing to become one song. And Butterflies to me had at least 3 songs in it. That's why I did kind of a follow-up EP of here's an electronic version, neoclassical version, a piano version. But that song, I know the headspace I was in was I was in one of those thin places when I worked on Butterflies. And I'm not always there, but I was definitely there for that song. And I would say most people have a very supernatural experience with Butterflies in the feminine. Especially losing their mom, which I'm so sorry to hear you guys lost yours. There are no words for it. And I remember when I lost mine, I had tried to write music. I think we're all trying to do something to encapsulate what our mothers meant to us. And those songs did not translate. They didn't connect. They felt forced. They felt like I'm thinking about my mom, or I'm processing grief. They were very direct. And I remember just being here one day and the music flowed like water. And it was her song. It was Ariana, which came out in 2019.
Yeah.
I didn't even mix that song. I didn't run it through hardware. I just took it right out of Logic, exported it, and put it out because it had her energy. And I didn't get butterflies. I got hummingbirds that just started appearing in this huge wall of star jasmine that's right outside of my studio. And they just appeared, and they started having little babies in the spring. And I had to go through that process of seeing these little babies grow up and then get eaten by predators. And it's like, okay, my mom just died. Now the one little gift that I have, these precious little birds are getting murdered in front of me. But it's very common to have butterflies be this sign of the afterlife, processing grief, love. I mean, I would hope your mom and my mom are still in some way aware of what we're doing, can hear us, can know what we're up to. I hope and believe that.
There is there is something to that. Like just really quick, in the book of Hebrews, it talks about that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Now, some scholars talk about that being the angels or even the saints, which your mom and my mom would be among them, the saints. So there is something to that. So when you're talking about Ariana, how it has her energy,
Yeah.
it really does, because like I tried listening to Ariana and thinking about my mom and I couldn't. And I knew that, like, oh, this is specifically written with his mom in mind, and it's not supposed to be like a blanket mood. Like butterflies, butterflies make me think about my mom. But when I listened to knowing your backstory with your mom, and I listened to Ariana trying to think about my mom, and I couldn't. I was like, no.
Well, it could be simple too. Like I could have written butterflies only for you and your brother and your mom. It could have been that simple. Because think of it, God goes to all this intricate work to make us. I think he's also giving composers very specific songs for very specific people. I wrote one called Under the Heavens that I didn't know was for my friend Brian's son, who accidentally died in this gun accident at their house. 16-year-old kid, super tragic. And I think Brian, my mastering engineer, he hasn't given me the details, and that's fine. But imagine being a parent finding that out and seeing that, and him and his son had just been enjoying Under the Heavens as he was mastering it a few days prior.
Beautiful song, by the way. Beautiful song.
Yeah, it is one of my favorites, Tony.
Dude, and so I think, okay, Under the Heavens is Michael's song, and Brian knows that. Like I didn't write Under the Heavens and quite know why, and now I know. And so I would not put it past God to know that Butterflies was written specifically for you guys and for your mom, because I didn't have an objective with that song. I just knew I was in a thin place. I'm supposed to write this. I'm supposed to do it now, and that's it. Like I said, I'm in the service industry, and so I think what I was doing was catching something that needed to be out there for you guys, for your mom. And I say that because I don't hear from other people about that song. Ariana, I hear from a lot of parents, a lot of kids who lost their parent to cancer specifically. And so they'll find that song by accident and then read the description. And so it's general enough to where I still think it can be about that.
Sure.
That's very different. Very different. So I love that you guys connected with Butterflies, and I hope her energy and her essence is in that song. Sounds like it is.
It, just so you know, I don't know whether Zoom is going to kick us off, but if it does, I'll send out another link so we can hop on.
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah, we'll just keep talking, and if it does, just keep an eye out for another link in a minute or two. So
yeah, you got it.
The thing is that with let's kind of peel open a bit, Tony, just because we're both thoughtful people, we're both artists. If you don't mind, let's talk about, and I want to get into this knowing that the clock might kick us off, so I don't want to like disrespect your mother's memory by you talking and all of a sudden it's gone, but
that's fine.
We'll just go through it. But just like, can you just tell us about when your mother was diagnosed and how that like influenced your writing at that particular point? Like, I'm sure there was just this unknown with what was going to go on, and just want your thoughts on that, like when she was diagnosed and what the prognosis was like.
Yeah. Well, everyone knows that sinking feeling when you found out. Ours was 10 years prior to her death, though. Yeah. Maybe 12. And so it was, I think I couldn't quite process what it was at first. And I remember bursting into tears. I was still in college at the time. Weeks later, the tears came. But she went into remission after some initial treatments. And we thought it was over. But, we learned years later it had moved into her lungs and her lymph nodes and eventually her lungs and her spine. And she never told us that it was progressing and getting worse. It was 2017, 2018. that she and I were actually not speaking to each other because I needed to put some boundaries up with her. She never had like a great father or a great male role model, and never, I don't think she knew how to be an adult mother to her kids. She relied on a lot of us for emotional support that should be coming from a friend or a spouse. And since her and my dad were divorced at that time, there's actually a large period of time where she was struggling and suffering that she and I were not speaking. And that's one of the big regrets I have, is that I was kind of waiting for her to get her acts together, and then I would start re-engaging with her. And by the time I did that, it was 9 months before she died. And I felt like I could really see my mom, really see her and see her clearly and understand her. I felt like we had common ground. But by that time, I could just tell her body was withering more, and she didn't quite have an appetite. I didn't see the cues. And the worst thing I did around that time was I could have taken her out to a meal, but she said, I'm not hungry. And instead of staying there and just being with her, this is 9 months before she died, I left on my own and went and got something to eat on my own and said, well, I'll just see you next time. I'll see you on the next trip. Well, the next trip was me coming down to her house 9 months later when hospice had already moved in. And so, but she was very layered. When I walked in, first thing was, why didn't you come sooner? So there was this immediate shame, this immediate guilt. And I thought, there she is. She's still kicking. There she is. My mom is still my mom. Even when the Democratic debate was on in 2019, I said, Mom, you want to watch this? She said 7 days before her actual death, over my dead body. She would not watch the debate. And so it was slow. It was years of on again and off again. And my mom sometimes being really sick and other times using her illness to manipulate us and get our care and our concern or money. And it was nuanced. It was complex. It was her using the card she was dealt to kind of move ahead. And I think it would have taken less of a toll on her body had she not gone so deep into having to get her master's and then her PhD. She never slowed down. Even in the peak of her sickness, she was always working constantly.
I did read that she did go in advanced education.
Yeah, she got her PhD a few days before she died. They came and honorarily gave her PhD in a wheelchair while she was on oxygen. And I think she just needed to have something of her own. She gave up her whole life to raise 5 of us, never got to do her own thing. I don't think her and my dad were a good fit long-term. They made it 24 years together, but my mom's whole life was kind of tragic in a way. She never got to do or experience her own things as a young woman, find her voice. She was just an incredible mom, gave everything she had, and she was depleted. And so even in her illness, I felt like she had to do all this perceptive makeup work while she was ill. And that, I think, made her illness even worse. Her stress level was just constantly high. She didn't have enough money to make do with what she wanted to do. It's tough, man. And I wish I would have been there more, definitely in those final years, but mostly in that last stretch of months. And we were in the process of moving out here to LA. And so it was like, when she would ask, hey, could you guys fly out and see me? I'd say, well, could we just fly you out here? Because we'd love to see you. We'd love to show you the new house. I didn't know. And by the time I did know, I look at all my decisions and I go, how was I so dumb to not understand and know, she was dying? But no parent's going to come out largely and say, I'm dying and I have this much time left. So it's more mourning what could have been. Ariana is more about what I wish I could have had with my mom, because I felt like we found solid ground and good footing in those final months.
There's a lot of parallel, Tony, to our mother and yours, and even some similar circumstances in regards to even it's interesting how there's 2 different experiences between my brother and I. Josh was with our mother till the very end. When hospice was there, my mom was living with my grandparents, and Josh moved in with my grandparents to care for my mother. And I had just moved to LA in 2021. right after graduating film school. Me and my best friend, who also attended film school with me, came out here to LA to just start our career. And I was kind of remotely checking in on my mom. And then we're from Vegas, as
Got it.
Henderson, Nevada is where I would call home. Not I was born and raised in El Paso, but I call Nevada home. So did my mother, even more so since she passed away there, and that's where
Right.
my grandparents are. And I would drive into Vegas, spend time with them, then come back to LA. But in May of 2021, when my mother passed away, I got a job to work on a film in Haiti, of all places, and it was crazy. I was doing what I was like. I knew what God has called me to do, which is to work in film. But it was just rather interesting. It's like the Lord called me away to work on a film out of the country, and I had to FaceTime my mother's last moments while Josh was right 2 inches from her while she was passing away.
Right. Right.
And 2021 was the summer I just listened to Butterflies. That song was the soundtrack post my mother's life.
Wow.
And that was really, that's what was, I read what Ariana's influence was, and I just was like, this is a solid guy. And I listened to more of your music. So the whole idea that you were talking about how like there was some tragic elements to your mother's life. The same for ours. I'm not going to get too much into those specifics, but there were times where I'm just like, on top of my mother's cancer, she had a hard life, but she loved God, and towards the end she experienced peace with the cards that were handed to her, and now with your mom they're in glory. So the whole aspect of you being in LA when she was dying, dude, that is
Yeah.
parallel to my story in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that, guys. It's really sacred.
Yeah. And the thing is that like with music, it really there's kind of like different aspects to it where this during a certain time, and you know this well, where the music, you still feel the emotions from that time. Like I still feel a lot of it with what was going on there, and I'm sure you do too, especially when you're composing it. That must be a totally different ball game.
It's a good time capsule. That's why I like music. You know, I have journals that I write in, but I've always seen these little songs as little time capsules.
Yeah.
This is where I was at the time. This is what I was feeling. Eschaton came right before her death, and it actually means the end of something, the end of an era. And I didn't know that. And so there's this very natural principle where our work in the natural world mirrors relationships and the connection we have to certain people. Yeah. So for Eschaton to come out the day before she died, which I would have never been able to plan, the end of something, Eschaton. It's wasn't written about her per se, but I had a sense that something was ending. And of course, I didn't know the new things that would birth. And my music has really changed since then. Niobrara, which I'm working on now, is about revisiting those years in the 90s in the Midwest because I love those years. And so I broke into that, the farm. I broke into it in 2021 in October. It was abandoned, had just fallen into all sorts of decay over 20 years. And I threw a cinder block through the back window and got in and could not believe it. It was a time capsule. Here I was going, I don't have to write the time capsule this time. I'm standing inside of it. This is my whole life and my childhood and all the beauty and joy that happened in this kitchen, in this room, and all the laughter and I made it a discipline to just, like, when I got back from that first trip, I took all the photos and the sound recordings and I just started writing. And it turned into a whole album where now I have 50 songs that I have to pare down, into maybe 15. So, and what I love about that though is like our lives are the well that we pull from. And all we have to do is be still enough and quiet enough to let stuff surface. You don't have to go look for inspiration. You don't have to go, you don't have to live in LA. I like living in LA. That's why I live here, but I don't need to. I like going back to Nebraska because all it does is it taps me back into what's already going on in me. And sometimes those physical locations are meaningful to go back to at certain times. I was so glad I had all this time carved out last year. I just had said no to everything. And I thought I wanted to have a summer where I do nothing other than what feels intuitive. You know, we don't have kids yet. And dude, I was in Nebraska for most of the summer. I would do the most average things. I'd go to the smallest towns, the smallest cities. I'd drive these gravel roads. I brought my film cameras with me, which I'm proud to say I have wasted more money on film than anybody you've ever met. That is the least forgiving format with the best results if you nail it.
Nice.
And it was great. It's like I felt my mom's energy calling me back to that house. And I see a piano leaning up against the abandoned house. Where did the piano come from? Who put it there? How many years had it been there? It was completely depaneled and rotting. And so I recorded it. The first note I hit and record is in the same key as Ariana. I only know I Googled it. See, I really don't know music. I Googled it though. So what the whole album is a deconstruction of the song Ariana. It's all in the same key. I love it. It makes so much sense because there's more there. It's like I don't get to have a living relationship with my mom anymore. But Niobrara, which is the name of the album, is a way of me saying thank you to my parents for the beautiful life they gave us on that farm. And it's a return back to those years in my life where there was not cancer, there was not bad news, there wasn't a tax burden, that you didn't have to deal with social media and all of this perceptive downfall. It was just innocence. It was me being a boy in middle America in the 90s. And that's important to me. Just like, people 10 years younger than me would say it was me being so-and-so in the early 2000s. It was, but that was my life. So it's funny because I put a song called Heirloom out and people said, that sounds like Ariana. And I was like, oh, that's right. It's that similar. Like, it's like my listeners are identifying and paying attention to it. And so it's been inspiring. Instead of doing a big album, I'm going to do one track every month for a whole year. Yeah. So that way it gives people more time to focus on the smaller bites of music opposed to, hey, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 and then I'm going to dump a whole album on you.
Yeah, there was a band that did that. I don't know if you know the rock band. They're kind of indie, kind of emo-ish, but they're called May.
I think I've heard of them, but I don't know their work.
Yeah, they did something like that where they did one song each month, and that's how they released it. And then the entire album was called MAE. So like the first part of the year was called morning, A is afternoon, E is evening, but it's acronym for May.
Yes.
So it's just throughout the entire year song. So that is a really good way to release music. It just drips it. You know what I mean? So it's not all.
Yeah, it lets me hear from people in real time too. Like I'm hearing this, or I can hear that you're going here, or have you thought about this? And then I'll actually go, this is so much more fun than doing it all in private and then saying it's done. Here it is. It's much more interactive. And I want to do a listening party here in LA in October with, food and wine provided. And I want to maybe even play some of the songs at the end of it. But mostly I just want to hang with my listeners in a physical environment and celebrate the album being out. I'm doing it to cassette tape as well.
Oh, you are? That's cool.
And I'm going to get 3D flash drives, the 3D flash drives printed in the shape of Nebraska that have the lossless files on them. So everyone will get a cassette and then
nice.
But that's it's cool. So 90s. I mean, the only way I'm reviewing these mixes is in my Chevy pickup that has a cassette player. So I burn my references to cassette and then I take them and listen to them, and it's a lot of fun. So it'll feel like recovering a memory, that was buried under the ground. It's going to analog tape, which has a different sound. But it's also about an era that is, I mean, dude, if you took home footage of you and your mom that you have captured when you were 6 and you played that, anyone would write music to that. I don't care if you think you write music or not. You would hear a sound. Right. So all I had to do when I came back from that house in 2021 was pull up home footage of the place I had just been, and boom, the music flowed like water. And that's truly the meaning of Niobrara. It means running water. It's a Ponca Omaha Indian word that means running water. Wow. And it's a river, it's a region, it's an actual state park in Nebraska, but it's also a metaphor for how this album came. So I'm a big fan of artists really, instead of doing what they think they ought to be doing, getting to a place where you just go, what is the inescapable thing in me that I know is coming up? It actually feels inevitable. But you can only do that inevitable thing if you've said no to enough things to create the headspace to be able to do it.
So
go ahead.
When you went back, can you remind me when you were in Nebraska last?
The first trip was October of 2021, and the most recent one I left in August of 2023.
Was that when you released Heartland?
Heartland came out this past fall, when I was actually in Europe. We had to go and live in Europe for a bit because we had mold in the house here, and I just thought I'm going to turn this into an experience that's moderately fun. Instead of renting another house, we'll go to Europe. But yeah, One Perfect Sunset in Heartland, I felt I wanted to get them out because they felt playful and the birds were in there. But when Heirloom came out, that's the stuff I was really wanting people to hear. That I am going back in time now, and I'm going to keep it eternally simple. Heirloom to me is the simplest song I think I've ever put out, and it went straight to the heart of what I'm trying to communicate in this album. So my core values for this album are keep it simple, more music for a longer time horizon more consistently, and then 3, I want to have fun. I want to stop thinking about the business end of this.
Yeah.
Which can be, you can easily get sucked into that as a business owner, the metrics, the data, the strategy. You know, you have peers in the same space, you get together and someone's afraid of this, and that person's afraid of AI, and that person's afraid of their own shadow, and that person's actually afraid of what they physically look like, and that person's afraid that so-and-so is going to take their job, and I'm shadow banned. And it's just like, get around sometimes with my friends, no disrespect to them, but it's like, I don't have conversations these days about the beauty of what people are working on frequently. People just are so overwhelmed with fear and anxiety about the industry they're in. They don't have headspace or energy left over to talk about what they're actually making.
Right.
So, you know, I don't want to be a part of that stuff. I want to be around, other artists, and I want to be doing things with other artists that are fully captivated by the vision that they've got. To me, this is why I go to France a lot. It's the cathedrals are someone saying, I care enough about what a sound looks like and feels like that I'm going to build it for you so that hundreds of years later you walk in and your jaw just hits the ground. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's a sign of love and care, that someone would think multi-generationally to create a building that's that good.
So can you explain what your process in the Notre Dame reconstruction? Like what can you expound on that more?
Well, spoiler, it's obviously a joke. There's nothing.
What I thought, but I'm just like, I don't know, man. I mean, you're a mysterious kind of guy that may not.
Nothing real about it. So I try not to take myself seriously.
Because I think you posted like a selfie of you talking in front of it. I'm like, is this dude serious?
Oh yeah, and I'll keep doing it. I view Spotify bios. You have one of 2 ways that people do it. Number 1, it talks about how all the awards you've received, and so-and-so has had their music used on this thing, and so-and-so has had this many streams. That's all BS. It's all ego. The other way to do it is to have fun with it. And you remember the early days of Facebook statuses, you know, Josh is ... and you would type in what Josh was doing. That was OG Facebook. And so initially it started with, what if I just updated my Spotify bio weekly with what I was doing? So during the pandemic, it had to do with what I was eating. And when I got COVID, how I couldn't taste. So should I do this or should I do that? And people would write me checking in on my Spotify bio weekly, like, hey, how was the cheeseburger you ate? Did you do ramen or did you do the cheeseburger? And then it went into this whole thing of like, I got a few of my other friends to do it. One of them, Molly, she just took Frank Ocean's bio, copied his, and put it as hers. Huh. So literally, it's just like, you read Molly's thing and it says Frank Ocean is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's actually really fun. So the Notre Dame thing for me, I was in Paris this past fall drinking coffee one morning. I'm like, I just want to have fun. So I went deep into it. And I was like, like I had messed with people years before when it initially caught fire on Instagram and said I'd been put in charge of rebuilding it as a joke. And I got a lot of messages. It's too soon. Don't do it. And I kind of like messing with people. I like pushing on their buttons sometimes. And when I went in with the Spotify bio, I have received, I'm not kidding, hundreds of emails of people saying, hey, your Spotify was hacked. You might want to get this under control. And my response is always one line. I'm just a simple man trying to get back to work. And no one ever replies. So if I can bring any levity to the classical music industry, that's what I'm trying to do. It's just a bunch of people with sticks up their asses that just wear turtlenecks, and it's a very serious industry. And I'm here just trying to say none of us are that serious. I'm sorry. Like, tell me about your humanity so I can actually connect to you. Enough of this. We're all idiots with these dumb felted pianos just trying to be ultra serious. Like, the world does not need more of that, man.
Yeah.
We got enough serious stuff going on in the Middle East, in our own country. Okay, life is serious. That's the default. Serious and intense and complex. Let's get back to who are the, what are the things we can laugh about and actually connect with each other on? What are the commonalities? Not all of us can repair the Notre Dame, but I can have a lot of fun while I try to convince I'm doing it.
And there's something to that, Tony. Talking about the seriousness, the talking about what we were discussing earlier about just kind of what is happening in society, etc. People are taking themselves far too seriously. Look at the color of my skin. Look at where I am a minority in this aspect. Look over here, look over there. And my mentor, who is a well-respected theologian and author, he says, like, because we can take God so seriously, we don't have to take ourselves seriously. Like, taking God seriously gives us the freedom that we don't have to take ourselves seriously. We can relax, we can enjoy art, we can enjoy each other. And that's what's the problem of what's going on. People find so much identity in themselves, and they find themselves to be the end all be all. When that perspective is put into God and put into Christ, that frees us up to enjoy life more. And going back to what you were saying about people who kind of get suspicious about things in the industry or their industry as a whole, like, there's something, even some psychological aspect to that, where it's called bias affirming, where you say, I know I am oppressed, I know I'm taken advantage of, and I'm going to make sure to find that in all of these different areas. There is a psychological aspect to that called bias affirming, and there's ways to unlearn that. And unfortunately, in society, it's like your brownie points go up the more you feel oppressed, and the more you try to find those different areas of where you are taken advantage of, etc. It's daunting.
I agree. And it's just not fun, man. I feel like, dude, I watch how kids operate, how simple and playful they are, and I'm like, I want to be more like that. Like,
right?
You put any one of these synthesizers I have in front of a kid, they'll get lost for hours. I'm like, dude, I own like 70 of these things.
Right.
Dang.
And I need to just have fun with the tools that I've already got. That's actually one of my hopes for this year, is I don't buy any more new gear. I can just have fun with what I already have. And it is funny. I did come across years ago that little thing in Ecclesiastes. It's effectively one thing for a man to have wealth. It's one thing for a man to have property, but it's another thing entirely if God enables that man to enjoy what he has. Or when the sons of Korah say, you've set me above my companions. How? You've anointed me with the oil of joy. Okay, so you've given me joy. That's why you've set me above my companions. Joy is the defining mark there. It's not wealth. It's not relation status. It's quite literally, I have the ability to enjoy what I have. You've actually given me the capacity to understand what I have in this life and enjoy it. And you've given me joy. You've given me this actual deep internal well. And one of the ways I've thought about fighting against these culture wars is simply by having joy in the day-to-day things in life. Like, treating people as who they really are internally. They're not the bitter, oppressed person that they say they are.
Absolutely.
They actually want to laugh. They don't want to be repeating this bizarre political groupthink that they've overheard.
Right.
They want to be accessed. And I'll put it this way. I think it's our job to know where they're coming from, that they're coming from a very dark and broken place. And it's to find a backdoor in to actually how to reach that person. It's rarely going to be through rational left brain conversation. It's usually going to be through our art. It's usually going to be through really simple things. Hey, could I help you with this thing? Could I get the door? Could I get you a meal? Like finding the way through to these people, I think that's the new art form.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I really encourage my friends who are in pastoral ministry. It's like, stop teaching people to mount a logical defense of what they think. Teach them to be more intelligent and street smart in how they're actually engaging the people that they live with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And in a lot of ways, that's going to mean not coming out and saying, I'm an evangelical Christian who's conservative and I believe this, 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 and this. It's more like, hey, maybe you just never say that ever again, like ever. And that's the opposite of what got pumped into me in Bible college, which was always have an answer, always be prepared, mount your apologetic defense, make sure people are interpreting scripture this way, this way, this way. And all it led to was arrogance and ego.
Mm.
And I feel like the great gift God gave me in my music is, hey, you don't have to be that guy anymore. First of all, you don't have to be in ministry. Thank God. Second, you get to just create and write music and you don't have to talk, which if any of my friends hear that Tony Anderson doesn't have to talk, they're going to be very grateful. They're going to say, thank God. So it is interesting, right? So it doesn't have to be in language, but there does have to be presence in our own presence. There has to be something going on in us, an actual living well that we give from. And to the degree that I've cultivated that, I actually have something to give, right? It's one thing for me to pray or try to prophesy peace over someone, but if I just walk into a room and I possess internal peace, that's enough. That controls the room now. It's not someone's weird agenda that they've got over there. Just me existing in the space is more powerful than that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I know a lot of my Malibu friends might hear that and go, oh, that's why I have crystals everywhere. No, that is not what happens. Crystal, I don't know where you spent all this money, why you spent all these money on crystals. I don't know where these crystals came from. This is probably a ripoff. You did not get the good end of this deal, but it's internal. And so that's kind of what what I feel this music taps into in me. Because I often forget this music is a gift for me before it's ever a gift for anyone else.
Absolutely.
Like, this music is meditative for me. The first time it comes out, I'm the only one hearing it. I'm always trying to get back to the playfulness of the very first time I heard an idea. Is like, dude, if people could hear what I heard the first time, I would be a really happy person. And as you know, with editing, filmmaking, music, the editing process kills your love for it because you've seen it a million times. You're totally desensitized.
Listen to it over again, see it again, listen to it again, over again. Yeah.
That's it. So I want to move faster with this album. I want to do more songs over less time so that I can move quicker to stay in the flow.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I've got to pare it down. I probably have time for one more question and then I should probably roll. But is there one more place you guys want to land on? Any other?
I mean, we've discussed so much. There's so much more we could talk about. That just really quick, like it just so you know, it has been a dream and a desire of mine to actually work with you. So the first song that I actually heard from you when I talked to you about in film school was actually Younger.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and that particular project is very spacey. And I was just like, because there was this script that I was working on that had to do with space exploration, and I was listening to Younger. I was listening to Younger over and over again, and it's like, I would love to one day work with Tony Anderson. So I don't know, man, get that door open sometime later in the future.
I'm really floored by that. Real quick on that song. I called it Younger because it was written about a young kid named Sebastian who had a very rare disease that caused him to his body to effectively reverse age. Your muscles and your body starts to break down as if you were extremely old and you were entering death, but it happens to kids. So there's this sense that instead of growing old, you are actually getting like younger and your body's starting to shut down. Your heart is starting to shut down. And it's about this little kid, Sebastian. And I never found out what happened to the kid. I tried following up with the parents and they never wrote me back. but I did that score. A friend of mine just asked me to pitch in and write it. He said, we're all volunteering our time and energy to do the film and the music for this campaign. And that's an example of, I just saw the footage and the music flowed. And my friend Adam Taylor came in. He's one of my favorite composers of all time. And he came in and helped me with guitar on it. And it just, now when I hear it, it's one of those songs that I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that. You know what I mean? Like I hear it and I just can't, I go, where is that guy? Like, how did that happen? So I'm not ruling film scoring out for the long haul. Film does something to me when I see it and I'm moved by it. You don't have to ask. The tap turns on. And Heart of Man was like that, because Heart of Man was a long journey. It took 7 or 8 years from the time the film hatched to actually getting it made. And I became a kind of a producer. What did they called me the genesis of the project, because I brought it to them. And then the guys I worked with eventually formed a production company called Cypher out of it. And they're the real backbone of how the film got made. And that let me just step back and score it. But I had so much emotion going into that film because we went and raised all the money for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
We traveled and raised and did the backyard things and the dinners and the devastation.
Wow.
You thought this person was going to give and then they didn't. And then you film it and you're like, no offense to the DP, but costumes in Heart of Man are awful. I die every time I see him. I'm like, that's why Christian films have a bad rap, is literally the costumes in that film just kill me. But, there are still parts of the message in that film that hit home, and they did interview me for it, which is interesting. It's the first time I had been in a documentary like that. But the music, of course, when it came time to score the film, I did the whole film in like 8 weeks. Wow. And I started writing it in April or May. And then I think we had to get on a plane at the end of July or early August to go to Slovakia to record it. So the whole time as I was writing it, we had the orchestra booked. That's the most stressful thing I could imagine doing. And at the same time, when I listen to some of that music, I'm like, you know what? The film was a gift because it forced me to not be too precious. I only had 3 days to write each of those pieces.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes one, sometimes 3. Brandon would come in, review everything I wrote. Hey, man, you can't do this. You can't do this, but you can do this. And we would have this on cycle. I'd go 1 day off a week. And dude, that whole thing, start to finish, it exposed in me that there's a level we can all go to in our creative work. When necessary, we can go there. We can go into overdrive, but it has to be the right project. And right. I don't want to just get on the hate Hollywood train. But, there are a few directors and projects out there that I think anybody writing music sees and says, I would love to do that.
Absolutely.
The Crown is one of them. Oh my God, the music in The Crown.
Oh,
is
yeah. What did you think of the music for it, really quick, of Oppenheimer with Ludwig's compositions?
Well, I don't mean to offend, because my friend Noah is Ludwig's assistant. I hated the music. I hated it. It's non-emotional. Tenet, same thing. I feel like it's like taking it's like taking caffeine at 3 a.m. and just injecting it into your bloodstream. Now, when I say I hated it, that's the most passionate thing I can say. Why? Because it's such an important story. And film scoring right now is in an anti-score, responsive pendulum swing. So we went from highly melodic structured scores in the 90s and 2000s, movies like Gladiator, American Beauty, right? Those things have memorable melodies. And now directors are like, I want you to make everyone feel as uncomfortable as possible the entire time that the movie's going on. Dune might be the first score that I've heard Hans do in a long time that had like a melodic through line that I can remember that. Interstellar was another one. Inception before that was really great. So I feel like Ludwig got this job. God knows how he got it, the position he's in, but he doesn't have an emotional center he's writing from. He doesn't. It. It's not, I'm not trying to be inappropriate here. When you taste a chef's food who's dialed in, they're the real deal. When you taste food that has no love, you don't eat there again. It is the same with films. It's the same with script writing and with music. Somehow it's been faux pas to say that music wasn't good. Dude, it's awful. And I would say the writing for Oppenheimer was just as awful. The movie could have been an hour shorter, or it should have been 10 hours longer and split out into a miniseries. This is like baffling to me how Chris Nolan is trying to cram so much in it. And, you know, it doesn't help that I also have some information on what the actual writing process for the music was like in the scoring session, like how chaotic Chris Nolan was, how unkind he is generally to his staff.
Wow.
And to find out that even the final pieces of music for Oppenheimer, there were software sample libraries still left in most of the cues. So in other words, the whole process was so disorganized that they had the biggest budget for the best players, and still they didn't end up using real orchestra. They ended up just using software. So to me, the whole thing just reeks of disorganization. And, you know, when I hear a score that's emotionally centered, I'm in. When I heard Arrival for the first time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to explain it, right? You just know. Sicario, very dark story. But Johan Johansson was dialed in, bro. He was dialed in. And then he died of a cocaine overdose, you know, because you handle at both ends. So, it's really sad. And I know that's a tangent, but I got to tell you, man, like in film music, you have the power to sink the ship or let that thing cruise off into the you know, eternal waves of glory. And right now, I would say music in general, what I think we're all hoping for is that artists find their center and start writing from that place. I get release radar every week, hoping I hear something that moves me emotionally. And most of what I hear is audible, but it's not music. It's not.
Ludwig's in the part that I think would resonate a lot with a lot of people was, can you hear the music? That's personally one of my favorite scenes. That music right there, I think, again, you described what it was, but I think that was the one that kind of stuck with a lot of people. I 100% agree about music now not having those memorable notes. One of my favorite scores was actually from Alan Silvestri for Castaway.
Yes.
Yeah. When you hear that, or even some of it that James Cameron wrote for Titanic, just that entire Titanic score is so memorable.
Even Apollo 13.
Apollo 13.
Yeah.
I love that one, man. Oh my god.
Dude, it's crazy to me. I would say one of the greatest of all time is actually Thomas Newman's score for Little Women from 1994.
Oh no, yeah, that's a great movie. Yes.
Insane. I watched that with my wife, and you know, there's a scene in there where I was like, I'm not crying, you're crying, you know, and I'm totally like a child. And look, it's like,
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I've heard so much from people that go, well, that's because you grew up in the 90s. It's a different era. Get with the program. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. The trash the Zoomers are listening to and that they have to put up with in terms of watching the Generation Z, I call them Zoomers.
Yeah, for sure.
The trash they have to intake and sort through, they want the real thing. There's a reason they are going back to trying to find vinyl records or associating from social media.
That's true. That's true.
Considering cassette tapes or getting really interested in the Criterion collection or watching The Matrix.
Yeah.
Which I never thought The Matrix would be a classic. So the Zoomers are the truth tellers. They have a high understanding of what is BS and what should be kept. And the fact that they are not largely consuming and enjoying current modern Marvel movies or the Star Wars franchise, or there's another thumbs up. To me, it's indication that we're not all crazy. This is not a bunch of old guys sitting here saying it was better when rock and roll was king on the radio. It's us going, dude, no, like movies used to matter. People used to sit down and write an idea out because they had an idea. That idea would sit for years and they would finesse it and fine tune it. If the idea was deemed to be good and it somehow made it past a committee of a group of people who had to finance it, they would then decide to make a movie out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Star Wars and Marvel says, we have a movie and a deadline and the actors secured and the sets and all of the data figured out and the release date. Now go find a story.
Yeah.
It's the most backwards way of thinking. It's totally soulless. And so I view Ludwig as more like he's a part of a system that honors kind of chaotic storytelling in a way. And I would just say, as a parting shot here, you know, Chris Nolan's films have become less enjoyable to me because they've become more complex. So when I'm hungry, I love good smash burgers. I love good pizza. I love good tacos, taco bowls. Very simple dishes, very easy to recall. They're the same every single time. I just want it on a different day. That's it, right? And if you mess it up, and if you take away my cortado the way I'm used to having it, you change my thing. I'm going to be a curmudgeon-y old man. And the thing with Chris is like, dude, you started so strong with The Prestige. You nailed it so hard in Interstellar, which is not about space, but it's about the relationship between a father and his daughter. And then it gets into Dunkirk. And I don't even know who these actors are. I don't know their names. I don't know what happened in Dunkirk. Maybe they showed us an edit of Dunkirk that was the wrong one. I think that's what happened. They accidentally.
Yeah, Dunkirk wasn't. I don't remember much from it. I know Harry Styles was in there. That was like his debut.
Dude,
yeah,
it's so bad. And then Tenet comes out, and I feel so bad for John David Washington. He's in his father's shadow. Denzel, bro. And you don't know if John David was a DEI play. Like Chris was like, I need a black guy being my lead because look at the temperature and the climate he released it during. Goodness. So did he get lobbied? But John David gets acted off the screen by, you're going to put Princess Diana, Elizabeth Debicki, or Robert Pattinson against your lead who doesn't even have a name. And it's just this crazy Euro-rack synthesis. I'm like, dude, my soul needs cleansing. I need to go pray after watching this movie. This is really bad for my soul. Right. And then Oppenheimer comes out, and I have such high hopes because I've studied World War II for as long as I've been alive. I think I came out of the womb in an ammo case.
Ammo case.
Ken Burns, the ultimate historian on the Civil War and the Second. And so I go into Oppenheimer thinking this is going to be incredible. You have quite possibly the most brilliant storytelling mind out there outside of a guy like maybe Denis Villeneuve. And he's going to make a movie about the atomic bomb. And first of all, the explosion was way too small. The problem is they showed the foreground in front of the explosion, which made it look smaller. And then second of all, they would have been about 40 miles back in real time. And there's a shot where the guy gets out of his little hut and looks, and it's like a mile away. I'm like, bro, this is a nuke. Are you aware this is about a nuclear bomb, not a bomb, but and then he just does the slow. And there were a couple of cool shots in there with the slow-mo. I liked the conversation he had with Truman in the White House afterward. That was super powerful. I thought the scene where he was up giving a speech and he hears the scream and he sees the flash going off the woman's face.
Yeah, that was good.
They probably needed another day to develop the sound design of that a little more intelligently, but that was extremely powerful. I'll never forget that. But it's not powerful because of the music. It's powerful because you still have Chris Nolan at the helm. It's just that when he gets complex and esoteric, like in The Dark Knight, the story breaks down because it's like you're getting too high and lofty. Go back down to where most people live, which is in survival mode. I'm not saying we should do that, but the baseline for most of humanity needs to be a lot more simple. I think Chris is he's too in his head, and he probably needs more truth tellers in his life saying and challenging him and saying no. I promise this is the last thing I'll say. There's a reason Zimmer walked away from Chris Nolan. I guarantee you, he read the script for Tenet and said, I want no part of this. And look who he's working for now. The best director in town, Denis.
Right.
You talk about a lateral move, bro. It's like, goodness, dude, you walked away from the burning train and you hopped on to like literally the thing that Reaper Cheap goes on in Narnia to go to the end of the world. Like literally, bro.
Yeah, there you go.
Hans Zimmer is Reaper Cheap with a reborn take.
Yeah. So that just lastly, tell us more about how the viewers can find you and just your parting message just for the podcast. Like what are some of your final thoughts?
Well, if you want to find me, go on Google Maps, type in Notre Dame. And I'll be at work in the top left bell tower, not the top right bell tower. Cleaning up the mess I made cooking beef over an open flame. Still trying to get my job back there. So go ahead, just again, call Notre Dame, say Tony's outside, he wants his job. By the way, next time I go there, I am gonna wear a hard hat and do more video content outside of the Notre.
Please do.
That's funny, dude.
And I'm trying to figure out if someone could like get me past the first layer of security to make it like, because my fans are in the point of confusion where they're like, it could be that he's just losing his mind, and I want to take them a little further into like, yeah, he really is. No, so I have let's see here. I have a vinyl record out as well. I'll send you guys one if you listen to vinyl. But I did an LP. We went super high quality. So if people want the physical stuff, they've got this. I've got a cassette tape coming out.
Oh, nice. Okay.
The standard stuff. It's just my name, Tony Anderson, on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Tony Pterodactyl is my name on Instagram. But I don't recommend anyone following me. I actually recommend them unfollowing me from Instagram and YouTube. So make sure you unsubscribe, click the thumbs down, and block me on all platforms.
Hey man, if you send us that vinyl, I'll get a record player, bro. I'll buy it for that.
No, you don't have to get one. Just text me your address and I'll send you one out. I would love to. I did.
Yeah, I would love one as well. Yeah.
And they sold during the holidays, but now, it's called Emmanuel. Now that the holidays are done, I think people.
Yeah, beautiful.
I heard it. It was nice. Mm-hmm.
Dude, thank you. But I really appreciate you guys and what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony, for coming on.
Thank you so much, Tony. It was a pleasure talking with you. Let's do it again soon, okay?
I would love it. Appreciate you guys. Let me know what you need. All right.
All right, buddy.
Sounds good, Tony. Thank you again.